Hello, this is Kirsteen's Aesthetic Art and Travel, and I'm going to today talk to you about St. Louis and a little bit of the surrounding areas, and also I'm doing a pastel picture with a little bit of watercolor on it, oil pastels, not chalk pastels. So I started this YouTube channel because all my life when I've told people I'm an artist, they go, oh, I'd love to do more art. Oh, I wish I could do art, but such and such an event stopped me. And I thought it would be good to do a skill share and share what I know about art to anyone who's interested. I'm also made it about travel because I find that travel is so inspiring and informative for artists. So, what can I tell you about St. Louis? Well, it's way less Hicksville than I thought it would be. It's the Midwest. I thought it would be, so far from Europe, so far from the birthplace of the Renaissance or Impressionism, that it would be pretty Hicksville. But actually, there is so much lovely culture. They have all these little tiny microbreweries where you get interesting different food from different parts of the world. The whole thing was founded by the French, and so there's a lot of French influence in the architecture. It has the Mississippi running through it, which is utterly vast, even though it's way inland there, terrifyingly vast. And of course, you can take a Mississippi riverboat and pretend you're Huckleberry Finn. And the art galleries were surprisingly good. Again, I thought it would be so far from Europe, there'd be nothing much there. But there's, a Degas and a Monet and all these things, plus some really interesting archaeological finds from nearby. And the space is so spread out and so green. It has so many parks. It's one of the greenest cities I've ever been to. Almost all the avenues are tree lined, and a lot of the buildings are Art Deco. And so you have these lovely Art Deco buildings with tree lined avenues, super spread out. You have to drive, you can't walk or take public transport. Like most American cities, it's so spread out that you would be, walking for hours, and there usually isn't even a pavement or a safe place to walk. There's lots of stretches of water and little lakes, and 3 rivers converge on that area, 3 major rivers and lots of smaller ones. So when you fly into land, it's like 50% water and 50% land, it looks like. My top picks are the Botanic Gardens, which are absolutely beautiful, world-class botanic gardens. Definitely take a trip on the Mississippi on a riverboat so that you can say you were Huckleberry Finn. And a museum called the City Museum, which is absolutely crazy. It's the creation of just one artist over his lifetime who collected curious things and put them in this skyscraper that he owned, Art Deco skyscraper. Lots of architecture from other skyscrapers that were taken down. There's vast rooms full of huge bits of Art Deco brickwork and doorways and whole windows preserved up there. There's also things like a room full of vintage pinball machines and masses of his own sculptures, which he incorporated in wood, wrought iron, and cement to make amazing, huge sculptures that you can climb over and also go through chutes and slides and passageways. So you're traveling through passageways between strange figures, and then you come out and you go down a slide. This is starting to be pictures of the City Museum here. And as you can see, the sculptures go right outside as well. He has a whole airplane there, and he has a whole school bus on the roof, hanging half off the roof of this skyscraper. So it's really an incredible, unique to St. Louis thing. You can see all these concrete sculptures. They were in tunnels that you walk through. And some of the slides go through several stories of the skyscrapers. So you go down a slide through 4 or 5 stories. Just if you do nothing else in the Midwest, you should go to the City Museum in St. Louis, Missouri. Really can't rate this one highly enough for being completely unique and amazing. And kids love it as well. It's very kid orientated with all the slides and chutes and things to climb through. St. Louis is very friendly. Obviously, I have the Scottish accent, and I look fairly unthreatening being a small female. So people are usually friendly to me anyway, and say, "Oh, where are you from?" when I travel, and so on. But I noticed that they were friendly to each other even before I opened my mouth. So if they're waiting in the queue in front of me and they're chatting with someone, they were very friendly to each other as well, mostly. And you sort of associate America outside of places like New York with these kind of relaxed hospitality manners. I don't know how to describe it, but definitely got that. I felt really welcome and people were genuinely interested in me. This is Art Hill. There's a huge park and then Art Hill with the art galleries on top. That's also got to be in my top picks. You go up there. This is inside the art galleries, and the there's a cafe in there. There's a really nice little shop, and yeah, St. Louis was just way more interesting than I expected it to be. So at the end of this montage of photos, there's two sets of video making a picture of reflected trees in a little piece of water next to the Mississippi River. Hello, this is Kirsteen's Aesthetic Art and Travel. I started this YouTube channel because lots of people, when they hear I'm an artist, say to me, "Oh, I wish I could do that. Oh, I'd love to do that." And so here's how I do that, so that others may do some more art and enjoy some more art if they wish. So I have some oil pastels today. These are not particularly expensive. I spent about £10 on them in a nice art shop in Birmingham. But I think they were in the sale and they maybe be a little bit more than that. And they are De La Rowley, which I've always found to be a good brand. And haven't had anything bad from De La Rowley. And I have a picture of a little pool beside the Mississippi that I took just very near to the city of St. Louis. And as you can see, my paper isn't white. Now, when you work with oil pastels, usually you get these pads that have loads of different colored pages in, ochres, which would be a color like this, greens, browns, and the page is already colored, and then that helps you kind of already start with some ground color when you work with the pastels. But I prefer to make my own because then I don't need to make it's not all green or all blue. I can relate the background color a little bit to what I know I'm going to do on it. And sometimes even when I don't know what I'm going to do on it, I do this. So before I went to Italy, for example, I filled a whole sketchbook with pages like this that I just put some watercolor paint on them and sploshed it in different colors. And I got blues and pale pinks and all sorts of colors and a lot of pale browns, and just filled it and let it dry, and filled the next page and let it dry. And then when I got there and I'd see some lovely view of the Italian hillside or something, and I'd just flick through my sketchbook looking at my different pre-made background papers and decide which one fitted best for the view in front of me, and then work onto that. And it meant that I didn't really have to carry paints to have all these lovely background colors. I had this tiny little backpack with this tiny little sketchbook. So now I'm looking at a view of the Mississippi and that I took in St. Louis. I took a photograph of, and it is reflecting. It's actually a little pool that the Mississippi's banks, so full of wet all around, huge marshy areas. And I'm in this nature reserve, and there's like a little pool reflecting. And what we've got is we've got a row of trees, and they're dark, and every single one reflects in this pool, which is stranded water from when the Mississippi's flooded and then receded again, and so it's not moving. The Mississippi itself does reflect things, but on this occasion wasn't as reflective as this because the pool was stranded and separate. And the Mississippi is so huge. I think it is the world's maybe 4th biggest river. Feel free, to correct me in the comments if you are like, no, it's 3rd or something. But it is so vast. St. Louis is way, way inland, practically right in the middle of America. Even though they call it the Midwest, it's actually more like the mid-mid if you look at it geographically. It's right in the middle. And still, the Mississippi is so big, you feel like you're looking at a lake, not a river. It's actually kind of frightening. You're watching these huge trees float by at, 12 miles an hour or something, and you're like, yeah, if I fall in there, I won't get out till New Orleans. And then by that time, it'll be this puffy mess. So it kind of like the true definition of the word awesome, actually something that makes you feel awe, sort of tinged with respect, tinged with fear. But this little pool is where the banks have flooded. There's a big nature reserve just outside St. Louis where you can't build on it anyway because every winter it floods everywhere. And then it's receded again and left behind this water. I so love the Midwest. It's really friendly. Everybody there is not everybody there, of course, but a lot of people that I spoke to, they were very friendly to me, and I thought, well, it's the nice Scottish accent. Everybody is a sucker for a Scot, right? But then I'd be in the queue behind people who who were talking to each other, and they were being so friendly to each other anyway, and then when I opened my mouth, they'd be like, oh, where are you from? So they do it to each other when they don't realize there's a Scottish person waiting in the queue. For some reason, the sky is less blue than the reflection of the sky. Go figure. Who do we have who's sciencey who can tell us how that would be? But I don't have to understand it to be able to observe it. So we have reeds growing up and grasses growing up from where I'm crouching to take the photograph. And then we have the reflected trees. And the thing about pastels is they are messy. They are messy media, and there's no way that you're going to keep them tidy. You just need to own that. And, if you're an artist who likes pristine artworks and beautiful illustrations of dragons, or whatever, stay away from oil pastels. They'll just make you hate. But if, like me, you love a bit of messy, then you can just lean into it. And you're not going to get precise shapes and forms. But what is interesting about that is it stops you being too fiddly. So it's kind of like, do lean into the messy. It's messy. It stops me being too fiddly. I don't like this green. It's way too strong. This one's much better. So, you can't sit there and try and draw every branch of these trees. It's going to be literally impossible with such a blunt instrument. It's not a pencil. And so you might as well, like I say, you lean into that, and then you'll get effects that you wouldn't have got if you'd been able to be more careful, perhaps. And obviously this mirror image, so everything I'm doing here, I'm doing there. And then the other wonderful thing about oil pastels is there's nothing they won't go over pretty much. If you're mixing your media, you know, they go over this watercolor easily, but there's more or less nothing they won't go over. So if you paint something in oils, you can stick oil pastels on top. If you paint something in acrylic, you can stick oil pastels on top. And you can stick light colored oil pastels on top of dark colored oil pastels. And so they're like the last media that you use, because they go on top of everything else successfully. See how I can put this black right on top of the green that I've got there, to just pick out some more of these trees and give them a bit more, make it a bit darker and a bit more definition. And do the same in the reflection here. So yes, so you can use them on top of each other and on top of other things. Now I want to put much more dark down by the roots of these trees, but I'm not going to sit here and tink 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 every single bit of it with the pastels, although I am a little bit. So some of the techniques that you can use is you can make little marks with them, or even dots. You can smudge what you've got with a finger or a smudging tool of some kind. So that's another technique that you can use with pastels, blend them into each other by smudging them. You can take the whole thing off, the paper off, and use the side to give you a nice flat area, to give you like lay in much more color, much more dark color easily, kind of thing. Broke that one, don't worry, it tends to happen once you take the paper off, and then you end up with a box of horrible sticky bits instead of this neat box. So like I said, if you're an artist who's into neat, you just stay away from them, they'll make you lose the will to live. Obviously, having done that, I can also smudge that too if I want. And then I could go over smudgy areas with more precise black again if I want. So there's a few ways in which, right, and I don't want to only have this dark occurring here, I want it occurring echoed in another part of the picture. So it's not too alone and isolated. Yeah, that's starting to look very much like reflected trees in my opinion. We can come back in with the watercolor if we want. So it is possible to put a little more dark in here again with the watercolor if we want, because it won't really go over the oil. The oil pastel will resist it, and it won't spread where the oil pastel is. So let's see, I might put just a little bit of blue and green into this. That's not really showing up at all. So I've got more water for my watercolors, and see if I can get some blue and brown into this. Like, there we go. No, just, it's only, as you can see, the oil pastel is resisting the watercolor, making it not stick where the pastel is. So I can splash over this and it won't go on anything that I've already drawn. And I think I want more blue in the sky. It's massive, massive Midwest skies. It's just huge flat places where You can see so much sky. And as you come into land, you know, you think of it as being, it was more inland than I'd ever been in my whole life before, Middle America. And yet, when I came into land at St. Louis, there's water everywhere. And driving around St. Louis, there's all these guys with boats and kayaks and things on the back of their pickup truck. Because there's just stretches of water everywhere. It's not just the Mississippi, there's 2 other rivers that converge in that area. And it creates, you know, pools and lakes and trapped what used to be bends in the river that eventually become clogged, or it goes in a different path and you're left with another lake. There's just so many miles of coastline. And beaches, sandy beaches down by the river, which I found absolutely charming. And the smaller rivers like the Merrimack River in St. Louis is has all these little sandy beaches along it, and great big birds of prey, big American-sized birds of prey that go vast territories. Whereas I'm used to seeing all these lovely little Scottish birds of prey, and the American ones are big birds of prey. Good. Yeah. So you can see a bit of watercolor and a bit of oil pastel and a little bit about the Midwest. So, as promised, aesthetic art and travel. So if you've enjoyed this, you can like, you can subscribe, you can comment, and you can even ask me questions about art, which I will endeavour to help with. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.